This episode of Ratified is brought to you by Decathlon. With equipment for over 70 sports, check them out at decathlon.ie, or better yet, visit one of their stores in Dublin or Limerick. Practice any sport you love, or all of them, and we've got the gear to keep you going.
Welcome back to the latest episode of Ratified. Today's episode is brought to you by Decathlon, Linenov, Uachtarán CLG, Jarlath Burns. It's been a year, Jarlath, since you've taken the hot seat. How's it been?
It's been very, very busy, Mark. Very enjoyable, very challenging in many ways as well, and I suppose very strategic as well, and that I came into the job with three major issues that I wanted to address. First one was Gaelic football. The second one was the amateur status and what it means to be an amateur player. That's year two, which is we're in at the moment. And obviously then hurling is the third big one. One was an immediate one, which was football. We had 1 year to get it right. That's 2025, the rule change year. You can see how that's going at the moment. Amateur status is this year. In fact, I'm meeting them, the amateur status committee, this week, because they're going to report very soon, and there's going to be hopefully some changes with regard to how we view the issue of the amateur status. The issue of hurling is a legacy one. It could take 10 years before we see any shoot to recovery there, but initial signs are really, really good at the moment, and I suppose you'll be asking me about that, and I'll be very interested to talk about it.
Yeah. Look, this time last year we were asking you about, we were very excited about the FRC, we were very excited about the new rules because it was clear something had to be done. You know, the games last year, going to the games, supporters not enjoying the way the style of football was going, and then you contrast that to the hurling. You see particularly the Munster Hurling Championship and the atmosphere and just the people talking about those. So I think this year has been outstanding. And I think you see the scores in games, and you see players now having to actually defend something that when I was playing I took pride on defending. And now it's almost like that you have to redesign players to actually defend again, which I think is fantastic, and coach players to do that. But that you must be delighted with the way that has gone.
Yeah, I am, and it's always controversial. It's disruptive whenever you do something like what we did. And again, we put the right people in charge of it, people who know the game and who understand the game. And the one thing I would say about this group of people is that it is very difficult to argue with them, because I read a lot of what I would call superficial arguments on the surface. Somebody has gone and watched a game of football and suddenly they have all of the answers based on that one game. These guys are watching every game. They have the best people compiling statistics, compiling evidence, and it's very scientific. It's all evidence-based decision making. So woe betide the person who's going to try and argue with any of the decisions that they make. One thing that did surprise me a wee bit was that we passed an enabling motion at Special Congress, which is a really, really big thing, which is allowed Central Council at one point during this year to look at what had happened in the previous 5 games, to make tweaks based on it, because we wanted to get right for the championship. That caught a lot of people by surprise, even though we had made it very clear we would do that after the 5th game, because you cannot, if you've made a mistake or if something isn't really working, we've one chance to get it right, 2025, and it is, we all know it's a guinea pig year, but it's a guinea pig year for everybody, and everybody has to understand that, and we do understand it. So we called a special Central Council meeting online to look at it. The guys came with the change that they wanted to make, and I was surprised by some of the comment, people saying, well, that was change for change's sake, I didn't do it. We did need to make those couple of changes, and we have made those changes, and they have been working. And then the next big decision was, do we bring it in for the Allianz National League game the following week, or do we wait for the championship? And we decided, no, coaches want to know straight away, what do I coach for? So, for example, Kieran McGeeney will be in regular contact with me about it, as you would know, I'm sure. And Kieran was saying to me...
A bit frustrated, wasn't he? Yeah, as all coaches were.
Yeah, well, we will always listen to coaches, but when it comes to rule changes, we have to listen to them. But we have a bigger vision. The coach has to try and make his team win. That's what he's there for. In whatever way that happens, he has to make it. We have to have a bigger vision for the game. That's not to say that the coaches don't care about the game or that we can't listen to them. We have to listen because they are on the ground And I feel a bit sorry for a lot of coaches. So Kieran said, look, we've been practicing for the last 3 months with, let's say, Ethan Rafferty coming out and becoming a part of the game. Now, with the way you've changed that, we're now having to throw that in the bin and start again. They're not really, because Ethan was out again.
He was playing out the field last year as well. So
yeah, he was. Yeah, well, it was Blaine mostly. Ethan did his Achilles tendon. The year before, he would have been out quite. Kieran McGeaney was the first person who started that, actually, a way back. Against Cavan. Correct, in Breffni Park, yeah. And everybody was saying, what is going on here? But
I remember it. It didn't work as well that day. But
no, but I thought that...
It was innovation.
It was very innovational, you know, and put it, Alan Partridge saying, needless to say, I had the last laugh. Kieran's the All-Ireland champion.
But I suppose goalkeepers were in the first 5 games were probably becoming more too dominant, I suppose, and having too much of an influence in the game, like, and no, I suppose they are there to stop shots and do kickouts and stuff. Like when they're going up scoring 4 or 5 pints a game, like it's, you know, are you not taking from your Stephen Campbell's and your, you know, Conor Turpin?
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at that, Bubbles, and the first one is to say that, so if you're an under 10 coach and you're training somebody to be a keeper, since keepers have started coming out, Niall Morgan and Ethan and guys like this, it's easy now. Our young underage coaches in our club will tell us it's easier now to get a keeper because Ethan, the way he plays it, it's a lot sexier and it's a lot easier. The disadvantage of that is that the lad, let's say Benny Tierney, would Benny Tierney make it in today's game? An outstanding keeper, one of the best keepers we ever had, no better shot stopper, brilliant man to hit a kick out to pick somebody out, but not the most mobile player in the world. And is there a place now for the like of Benny Tierney as a keeper? So in rugby, you can find a place in a rugby team for every type of physique. If we continue with bringing keepers out, is that now taking away from the lad who wants to be involved and knows that he mightn't just have the physique to be an outfield player, so he then develops his talent as a keeper? That is a big question for us.
Jarlath, after game 5, obviously things were tweaked, but the FRC, they've compiled all the evidence, everything. Like, we've seen drastic changes in the scores. I've seen, like, say, in terms of the club game, I've seen referees are gassed after the game, particularly after the Solon goal. That was the one opportunity where a referee would actually get a chance to recover. Now, don't get me wrong, the game is at a better place, way better place. But do you think, is it now a time, particularly for football, because I think I'm actually questioning, over a 70-minute game period, would one referee be enough for a game? Because it's just end to end now. It is. And okay, you might say, sure, the hurling you can do one referee, but it's I see it at club level.
It's a major challenge at club.
It's a major challenge at club level. And now the one good thing is mentors, they can't roar at the referee like they used, which is a great thing. But do you think it's something that should be entertained? Like, is this something maybe the FRC could look at or are looking at with 2 referees, or was that something that would be off the table?
It's not something that would fall within the FRC's remit.
Yeah.
It's something that would be more to do with that the referee development committee would present that to the standing committee on playing rules. You would bring it to Ardcorla, and then you would have to bring that to a congress. That's a major change in rule, because again, if anybody thinks that would solve a lot of problems, it would only create other problems where in one half of the field you have one guy who would maybe play a particular interpretation and you have somebody else who would have a different style, let's say, not interpretation but style. It's not something you would rule out, but referees would prefer not to have that, Mark. They would prefer to say, no, I go out, I'm the person in charge, the players know who I am. And then in a county match, the referee does have a lot of help. And we have tweaked the rules with regard to, like I saw in the first game, I think it was against Armagh Galway, one of the Galway players crossed the line just to get the ball. And if that's your instinct, if somebody's looking to pass you the ball, and 14-yard free for Armagh, and we were all looking and going, no, that's really not what it was meant to be. All of these tweaks come into place. But that's something that could be looked at on an ongoing basis, the Standing Committee on Playing Rules, but it's not an immediate priority. Now, one of the issues that we have is our ageing referees panels across the country. So why is that the case? Is because of the bad manners referees we're getting. The reports we're getting back from club referees is that has almost stopped it. We're trying to change the culture. That'll take a longer time than you think to change that culture. And hopefully then, if it does, we'll get younger people prepared to referee.
Well, that's the key thing. there's probably not enough refs around to have 2 refs at club games all over the country. And I think it is a massive challenge. I agree with Mark. I think universally the FRC has been lauded and this has been great. But we see senior inter-county referee is 2 linesmen, is 4 umpires, and there's still teething problems, which is totally fine. That's very difficult for one guy on his own, without the umpires and the linesmen, to go out for an under 15 match or a failure match and try and implement that. So it's been massive progress in the space of 12 months since we've sat here, but I do think that will be a challenge, and just getting referees to younger guys to come in and want to do that. So it's a tough challenge. One thing I'd say, Jarlath, it's kind of topical, the national leagues have been exceptional. And I think outside of just this year with the rule changes, some incredible games, packed houses all over the country across all 4 divisions. But the National League is a brilliant competition all the time. But since the schedule changes over the last couple of years, I think it's the last 3 seasons, there is the issue with the league finals.
Backing on to the...
And teams, there's 8 teams going to come up for the National League finals. I think the league finals is a brilliant weekend. Those players, those supporters coming up to potentially win a trophy in Croke Park is brilliant. But we have seen over the last couple of seasons, maybe the integrity of the competition, teams don't want to be in the league final because 7 days later or 6 days later they're playing championship. The National League, there's only 3 trophies to win. We've played in it, we've been fortunate enough to win it. Is there any scope to give an extra week, 10 days, whatever it might be, so that the league finals can get the time to breathe the respect they deserve for supporters and for players and coaches? Because it's an issue now.
Yeah, well, the 2 experts in that are in this building is Bernard Smith and Fergal McGill.
I thought you were saying us.
You're experts.
Thanks, Jarlath.
You're experts in everything. Bernard and Fergal are experts in fixtures. Now, they set out at the beginning of every year the master fixtures plan, and they look at it week 1 to week 52, and they can tell exactly what is happening on every single week. This is the tightest thing that we have in the association at the moment, which is fixtures and fitting them all in and trying to make sure then that the club player gets a proper fixtures schedule for them. So if you're going to change that, there's a number of things, right, at a particular time of year that we will get heat over. One is how the league, for the Allianz League final, backs right onto the championship. The second one then is provincial final replays. And the third one then is that there's only a week between the All-Ireland finals and the All-Ireland contenders for the final have only 2 weeks to prepare. And that's 2 weeks to get their team ready, 2 weeks to get all the fundraising done that needs to be done. And having spoken to the chairs of both counties for the All-Ireland final, they would have said that, they would have preferred an extra week or 2. Yeah. So if we move, let's be very careful about what we do and why we have this split season. We have the split season and we have 6 and 6 in July, and then it goes into the club season. Because whenever we made that decision, it was the first time in about 40 years we made a decision that was based 100% on the club player. And we would have had year on year on year people coming and talking at Congress about the club and the club player, but we never did anything about it. So if we're going to change this, we have to do it for the right reason. Now, let's say if we get that week for between the league final, the Allianz League final and the start of the championship, we have to push something else out. So we either push it back or we push it forward. So then we're going to August. If we push it back, we're backing into the pre-season competitions. And if there's anything that I got this most severe criticism over, it was supporting the GPA over the ending of the pre-season competitions. I got fierce, within my own province. Yeah. I went to the Ulster Convention. They were queuing up to criticise me over that. That cost about $250,000 to Ulster GA. And I would understand why they'd be cross at me for supporting the GPA, but I did it for player welfare, one of our values. That's what the GA president has to be always cognizant of. What are the values of the GA? I have to defend those. Player welfare is one of them. So I would certainly be open to that, but if I said that to Fergal would say, right, what are we going to lose out? So we lose it, let's say, a week in the league, because we have a couple of breaks in the league. Mm-hmm. Why do we have those? We have those to allow for Storm Eowyn and other things, and we needed those breaks. So that's very, very tight. So if there is, the only scope that there is really is to pull it back into the middle of January, and then you're pulling the start of training back, and already that is being abused So this is not, if there was an easy answer to this, we would have found it by now.
But there's one other week as well, which we seen last year, which was the losing provincial finalists play the qualifier and then they're straight into the quarterfinals as well. So it's a hectic schedule. But I don't know, if you push the season out 2 weeks and I get it, you're moving into August, but is that just not a runner, that the deadline has to be?
No, it's not a runner. No, it's not a runner for the future.
Okay.
This year it's out, next year it's out as well. But it'll be the next president will make that decision whether or not we go into August. It's probably not going to be my decision, but I would be open to it, notwithstanding the health warning that comes with the whole area of starting the club championships. We were showing so little respect to the club player that there was literally a group set up called the Club Players Association. They had one word, Fixtures. And we solved that for them. Let's not now go and unsolve it. So you fix one problem and you create another problem. But I think that there is generally an understanding that moving into maybe the first and third weeks of August might be the worst thing. But you have to remember this also.
Yeah.
We have LGFA, they have their All-Ireland finals as well. And we have Camogie, they have their All-Ireland finals here too. And we also have to allow for a replay in hurling and football and a replay in LGFA and Camogie. So that takes up a good bit of August. And I'm going to say the next thing without any apology. We also have concerts in this. And the Croke Park is now the major funding organ of the GA. Let's not forget that. This stadium is keeping our organisation financially viable. Because without the 16 or 18 million that is given by Croke Park to the GA, it costs us 20 million every year to pay the 350 coaches we have going around full-time promoting our games. We don't have FIFA or RFU to give us the money to do that. We do that ourselves. We have a coach in almost every national school. 20 million, that is. So we have to be very careful before we start going on about we shouldn't be putting concerts in front of. I agree, we shouldn't, but we can't ignore that either. That's an important economic driver for the association.
Stop trying to get free tickets, but that's the other reason you're going to get free. Pay your way.
I'm okay, I'm sorted.
But no, and that's fair. The club, the split season, I think, has been a major success as well. 97, 98% of GA's club players, and it was all tailored towards. We would have seen it at Dublin. Our club championships put off until the end of the year. It was horrible to be a club player. You're just an afterthought. So the split season has been a success, but just there's loads of good stuff. I just think the National League is one that just sticks out.
But I think for the National League, it's only the top 6 teams in the Division 1 that are worried about getting to a league final. Division 2, 3 and 4, everyone wants to come in the top division to the league final to go up a division. So I think it's only an issue for the top 6 teams.
The finals themselves, Bubbles, those teams are playing championship the following week.
Yeah, I understand that, but to get there and to be more competitive in championship, you want to go up a grade in your division. So you look at Division 4, 3 and 2, they want, like Monaghan wanted to go up. Now I know teams are playing the week after, but if you want to be playing against the best teams, you want to win the league. Yeah. And like it is condensed enough as it is. Like teams 1 to 6 in Division 1 were either coming top or relegated. Like Mayo were relegated at one stage and then they came top. But like if you want to be competitive, like you're going to want to win your division, except for maybe Division 1.
And if you think about it, Bubbles, a couple of years ago, you go back 5 years, the teams in Division 4, 3 and 2 especially, the league was everything, because realistically in All Ireland wasn't in sight. Remember when Leitrim got here to a league final? It was huge, and so if we rob them of that, so that the 2 teams, the Dublins and the Kerrys, who are used to being in All Ireland finals at the end of the season, for example, or if we're waiting on possible replay. And I know we've had loads in the last kind of 15 years. We had none for 50 years in hurling. So it's what are we basing our decision making on around the players, the game, the guys who give up everything to be on the pitch, the entertainment. We don't have that many really good competitions at intercounty level, and it's up to the players to put their effort into it. And very often, the pre-season competitions taken hugely seriously in Ulster, but everywhere else, certainly in hurling in Kilkenny,
Same football.
Yeah,
is.
like it was our under-20s or our under-21s who played, or our development squad, and that was all fine. So it's not really a loss there, and it's a huge loss in Ulster, and that's fine. But sacrifices have to be made somewhere. So whether that's squeeze something in the fixtures later on, whether that's, do you know what, we get that you're used to, because in Kilkenny this happens all the time. Oh, we used to have 4 weeks to book a hotel for an All-Ireland, to do our fundraising, to get it all started. Well, do you know what, lads, now you only have 2 weeks, and maybe we need to just find other ways, and we need to pivot, because the games are the most important. Like they are the most important, whether it be at intercounty or a club. And you mentioned that club level. It's funny because in Kilkenny they always had a really good, strong club championship all of the time, because our system just worked. But it probably worked because football was played in January, February and March, and hurling took over after that. But if you go to Dublin, where a Dublin footballer is also a hurler, and the club championship, the Dublin hurlers are gone out of club championship 3 months beforehand. The club championship is held up because some guy is playing for intercounty football and their club won't play without him. So it's a minefield, and it's a mess, and we only see what happens on the very surface, and we say, sure, how could you not solve this? We've, 365 days of the year.
For the genuine dual counties, I think it takes 16 weeks if they have groups of 4, and everybody's playing round robins now.
Yeah.
They have I think Tyrone's the only championship now that's out and out knockout.
Kerry have 2 championships.
Yeah, 2 championships. Of course they have.
And you've your agents
being odd
after that.
Yes. So you have to, and one of the issues, the dual counties are the jewel in our crown. We should all aspire to be them. We shouldn't look at them as being a nuisance. We should try and cherish them and nourish them and do everything we can to keep them. So the moment, let's say, there's ever any word that we might move 1 inch into August, I'll get a phone call from Paul Bellew of Galway and Kevin O'Donovan from Cork saying, don't move that 1 inch. We have a sweet spot. So there's the 2 biggest, most genuine dual counties. Yeah. So we have to be cognizant of what they're saying. And now, Richie, what you said about the pre-season competitions, I hear what you're saying about them, and I'm going to argue against myself. The reason why we need pre-season competitions, the reason why we need those lesser, let's call them secondary competitions, is that in an amateur game, you need to have a competition that's not just as high stakes to have a look at new players. So if you look at soccer, Arsenal need a new midfielder. They buy him on a Tuesday and he plays on the Saturday. We don't have that. We have to find somebody, and the only way in which you can find a midfielder is to try him out in, let's say, a pre-season competition or in the league. And that's why you need to have a couple of competitions before the championship that aren't just as high stakes. But with regard to the league final, there was really only 2 counties as the league was going on that were starting to worry about getting to a league final, and that was Donegal and Galway, because they were both involved. Galway going to New York and Donegal playing Derry in the first round championship. As it happened, neither of those went to the league final. Now, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories. Did they try not to get to it? You're right when you say every player goes out to do their best in every match because they want to keep their position. So I'm not too sure if that's the case. You go out to win every single game that you play in. And even if it means going to a league final, people can sometimes sensationalise a wee bit about the impact of getting to a league final, but I would love to be in one.
Jarlath, you mentioned dual counties, and brings it back to your third priority around hurling. Like, is it good enough that we don't have enough dual counties? You know, and you're talking about, there's a difference maybe between genuine dual counties, Cork maybe, Galway, Dublin, others, whatever. But from a hurling perspective, and I know this is one of your priorities, we still haven't moved. 141 years later, we still haven't moved in the genuine hurling counties. You know, hurling was played in all of those areas prior to the GAA being founded. We've inherited something that's part of, more a part of Irish culture than almost anything. And certainly, we can all argue whether hurling is better than football and soccer and rugby. We all have our preferences, but definitely hurling is the most unique game in the world. And are we doing enough to ensure that everyone has the chance to play it at a reasonable level? And also, are we at a volunteer level serious enough about promoting it?
There's a number of points brought up there, Richie, but the first thing is about it being part of Irish culture. Of course, that is the most Irish thing that you can possibly do. If I wanted to impress somebody who's not from Ireland or bring them to a hurling final, I wouldn't bring them to a football final, I'd bring them to a hurling final. because hurling is our culture. It goes right back thousands of years. And this is not going to be easy in any culture where you have a ball game and you have a stick game. The stick game will always be confined to particular areas and be catching up with the ball game. So I'll give you an example. Baseball is in terminal decline in America. And I opened a pitch a couple of weeks ago in New York, Redmond Park, and I was wondering, GAA, 2 pitches, fantastic, lights, everything in Yonkers, as good as any club setup you would get. All the local politicians were there, incredible. And I said, where did this land come from? And the guy said, well, this was baseball, and baseball, nobody's playing baseball anymore, so he'd given it to GAA. And they said that so blandly. And I said to myself, is there anybody fighting to try and develop baseball? Don't think there is, but there is with hurling. And we know that the best way in which you can get hurling to where it should be is to create more teams that can compete in the Liam McCarthy Cup. And the best way to do that, Armagh's never going to get the Liam McCarthy Cup with 8 hurling clubs. You have to try and A, create new clubs, and B, start dual clubs where we have plenty of numbers. So let's just take my club, Silverbridge. So my club now have enough for 2 senior teams, 1 Division 1, 1 Division 4, and a reserve team. Now at our AGM I said, all that proves is that we have enough that we can play hurling. So the starter packs that the Hurling Development Committee have gotten out to incentivise clubs to play hurling, we have applied for one, and we're starting hurling now at under 6s. So what we're trying to do is to provide catalysts for clubs that want to start hurling, and this is going to take a long time. This is not something that we're going to see major improvements in immediately. But I will say this, and it's important that we know this. Back when I was young, I'd never an opportunity to play hurling. There was no hurling club within 10 miles of my home. But suddenly a hurling club appeared called Creevrue, and all my children got to play hurling. In fact, Arfinon won the hurling Ulster Junior Championship and got on the All-Star team, Ulster. We are very proud of that hurling. And Creevrue is a really good club. And that's working because a lot of clubs are now feeding into Creevrue, and that's keeping them going. If you look at the last Hurling Development Committee, what their 3 recommendations were: A, give opportunities to play hurling at a level that you can play it at. That has been achieved with the Tynog, with the Celtic Challenge, with all of those. So you're seeing players being able to play against teams that have reimagined the county boundaries. They don't mean anything now for these competitions. And there's hundreds and hundreds of games being played. The second one was proper coach education. Again, that is happening. And the third one was to have a culture of innovation. No hand around the homework. If something is working for you, let it work. So you have a lot of people now going to Offaly. You see what has happened in Offaly in the last number of years under Michael Degnan and those guys. A lot of counties are now focusing on Offaly. What did you do? What was your good practice? And now trying to move that into their county. But that is a major priority. Hurling now is a UNESCO heritage sport. I had a meeting with the Taoiseach. We discussed that at length. The government are very keen to get involved in this as well. So I promise you, Richie, that hurling is a major priority for me. I know you might have heard it before, but we didn't have a hurling development committee for a few years. We have one now. We have William Maher in place. It's going to take a lot of time, but the will is definitely there. And I know that the next president after me will carry this work on. That's the important thing.
Jarlath, you're in over a year now. Some easier questions now. And I think I know the answer to the first one. If you were to say personal highlight from the first 12 months and a low light as well. So go with the highlight.
The highlight's very easy.
Neil might know the answer.
Thought you'd never mention it, Paddy. It had to be.
Coldplay, Bob.
And the funny thing about the highlight is, up until that point where the cup was handed over, it was agony. Like anybody who's watching it, it's just pure agony. And the day of the All-Ireland final is an extremely intense day for the president because there's so many things to do every minute. By the time that ball's thrown in, like you're ready for a snooze.
Did you get to enjoy the pre-match, or were you just
No, there is no part of it that involves enjoyment. It is, and you should all know you're all All-Ireland winners. Yeah. For your family, it is hell, and especially if you have somebody belonging to you involved, because you don't want your child to be the person that's going to give away the pass that'll lose the match or whatever. And like Jarlath Burns having the ball at the last minute, every time I look at that, I think, why did he solo that ball twice and wait for the referee? He should have got that ball. He had space to go and get a score and put the game to bed. I still look at that and think, give off to him. You should have got that ball and headed for goals and fisted that over the bar and finished the game. But he doesn't listen to me anyway. But that was definitely the highlight. There is no doubt about it. I never thought, actually, when Armagh were in the Division 2 final and leading Donegal into the last minute of the game, thinking,
5 minutes,
I might get to present a cup to my own county here. This is looking really good. And then Donegal got 2 quick points and it didn't happen. And I had to smile and hand the cup over to Donegal. But just winning the All-Ireland was amazing. And if ever a team deserved it, was that team. Like losing 2 Ulster finals and penalties.
Oh, yeah.
And like we scored all our 5 penalties last year, scored them all.
Still lost.
And then still lost. Like you can't get any harder than that. And then 2 quarterfinals on penalties. You're just saying, yeah, look, they deserve that.
Low light then.
Oh God, one of the things that you have to do as GA president is attend the funerals of Gaels.
Yeah.
And you see, like attending Joe McDonough's funeral, attending Micheál Mara-Hartig's funeral, going to sympathising with people who have lost loved ones. That is something that is a very necessary part, because when the GA president shows up, it shows that that person had a status within the GA. And although that is it's a very important part of my role, it is something that really can take a lot out of you, particularly if it's a young player or something that has died suddenly or whatever. That would be something. And there are other challenges as well. I'm never afraid to face challenges. You have to. You can't walk away from them. And I always try and lead from the front. I don't micromanage or anything like that, but I try and lead from the front and make difficult decisions when they have to be made, always going back to protect the values of the association. So I don't know if that answers it or not, but there's always difficult things to do every day, difficult conversations to be had when you're president of the GA. And leadership is the first time you have to say no to somebody or to make a very difficult decision that's going to impact on others. But you're not a leader if you don't do it.
Jarlath, the Aussies and the players, the Gaelic footballers that are playing AFL. Now, I'd have my Kerry hat on. We're being particularly hit. I think Tyrone have been particularly hit. The Dubs, few players from the Dubs.
Yeah, not as bad, but
and like at the moment, it's at a stage where I've been involved in development squads in Kerry, training younger players, Kerry under 15s in the last few years. I'm watching these fellas now going off to Australia, and that's their decision. That's their career. You know, warm weather climate, professional sports, all of that. At the moment, we're told that the Australians are watching Clubber, watching our players week in, week out, looking at the players where they're at, talking to the players after the games. You did very well there. At the games, after the game, could I speak to your dad regarding, talking to your dad about, whatever. This is where we're at. So I look at it and I say, we're all coaching at the grassroots, all these players, for what? They're off there going to Australia to pursue another career. And I just wonder, is there anything that we can do? I mean, I take, for example, I was talking to you beforehand, I take, for example, Brian Fenton, came on the scene in 2015. We had a player, Mark O'Connor, from Dingle. He was man of the match in the schools final out here in 2014. He was man of the match in the All-Ireland minor final in 2014.
Well, wasn't he, no?
Yeah. He was man of the match in the 2015 schools final out here, and he was man of the match in the All-Ireland final. 2 years in a row, 4 man of the match awards. He heads off to Australia. We had an opportunity there. Not saying that he was going to be better than Brian Fenton, but what I'm saying is we had an opportunity there for a player who could possibly, take on the Dubs in that department, and we lose him to Australia because he wants to pursue a different career. That's his decision, and we have to respect his decision. Is there anything more, do you think, that we can do in that department? And do you think that we should be, should the clubs and the counties be compensated for something in that? And can we kind of look at that as a GA organisation?
Well, this came up at Ardcorlia, Benny Hurl from Tyrone. You mentioned Tyrone and Kerry as being 2 counties that were particularly hit. When Benny brought it up before Christmas, that evening I sat down and I wrote an email to the chief executive of the AFL that it had come up at the highest level in the GA. And I had been over in Australia last year when I was in Melbourne for the GA Melbourne Championships, and I met the AFL to tell them about our concerns. So I wrote an email, I got a response back, and they have been over now in Ireland, and I got them to meet your brother Tomas and Benny Hurl, who made it, on no uncertain circumstances, the impact this was having. And the annoying part of it is that it's almost like oven-ready players they're looking for. But LGFA are being particularly hit because our LGFA game is miles ahead of the AFL game. So Blaheen Mackin and the like of these, Core Stone, Reed Street, they went over and they fitted straight in and were well ahead of these other players. You're right when you say in an amateur game, it's all about lifestyle. We don't have any player on the contract. They have a right. And if you even look at the people who are leaving Ireland and going abroad, it's a lifestyle choice there. They're not doing it because they can't get a job here. There's plenty of jobs here. But I suppose they want to pursue a professional lifestyle. But winning in the AFL, I was at the AFL final, the grand final, and winning that for an Irish player is not the same as winning in All Ireland. Our Jarlath Og was asked to go to Geelong whenever, I think it was in 2016, 2017, and they pestered him. They sent DVDs about the club, they sent letter after letter, and then COVID came and it stopped. He said, thank God it came, because I wouldn't have won an All Ireland medal if I had gone to pursue a career in Australia. So it is very difficult. We can't break off relations with the AFL. We need to have it so we can inform them about the impact it's having on our players. In fact, we're not happy about it. But it's like a lot of other things. It's like losing players to rugby. It's like losing players to the Premier League. The amateur status is the best thing about our game, but it also means that we don't have that tie on our players' contractual ties that other people have. But believe me, it is being addressed, and I'm in constant contact with the AFL about it.
So can we look at it, Jarlath, even and I think of sometimes I think maybe we let ourselves down as an association when we try to tie things in. For example, how can we do something to ban them from going to the AFL? How can we, I remember a couple of years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was around when I first started hurling with Kilkenny, they brought in a rule that younger players were going to America for the summer and they were playing hurling and the clubs weren't getting access to them. And they brought in a rule to stop anyone who was playing on a Kilkenny under-21 squad. You're not allowed transfer to a club in the summer to play for 2 months in New York or America or whatever and then come back for the championship. You weren't allowed to do that, and they took that away, right? And initially you think, oh yeah, do you know what, we're doing something about it. All those players went anyway. You know, you're not going to, you have to incentivize players. You can't put, you know, if you go against players like that, they don't care. You know, it's like, how can you incentivize them to stay? What you mentioned around Jarlath Og, he's probably very lucky in the sense that he's from an esteemed GAA family and he's grown up with this, and he was maybe deep down, if he went to Australia, he'd always be longing to come home. He's maybe a different character than, we can't all be like that, because we can't only be picking from the GAA families, you know. So what can we do more to say, do you know what, if you choose this path, this is what it's going to do for you. And sometimes it's basic, it's around expenses, it's around access to facilities, it's around the environment that you're in. And I'll give you a quick example. Rugby, which I think is a gigantic threat to us at the minute. There's one rugby club in Kilkenny. They do the same. They'll cherry pick the best, and the rugby club is right next door to our GAA club. We have a fantastic under-14 team. Won the first team in the club to win a Division 1 championship. 3 or 4 brilliant guys. They'll all be invited into the rugby club. They'll be given GPS trackers. They'll be given nutrition plans. They'll be given the best treatment. So, you know, do you know what? You could make a Leinster squad. And it's not really about the end game. It's about, God, this is incredible to be part of it. And how can we incentivize them to stay with us?
Yeah, well, there's always that allure. Like I will point out that there's 250 rugby clubs in Ireland and 1,610 GAA clubs. Rugby is it's a lot smaller of a sport, so that one club in Kilkenny can do that. But there are massive incentives as well in staying at home and playing your club. So, for example, go back to our own house. I know that you would say that we are steeped in the GAA, but most lads who end up on the county team come from families like that too. So Jarlath Og is now manager of our Féile team. They're in the Féile final. He was manager last year as well. Every Saturday night, where does he go? He goes to our club actually to play darts, right? All of these are lifestyle things that can really enhance somebody's life, as well as that. If you are a county player, an established county player, it does enhance your opportunities in Ireland in terms of, you know, you're well known, you're highly respected as a GAA person. It can help you because people can see there's a person who's giving a lot of themselves to their sport. They're in a high performance area. They understand dedication, sacrifice, the resilience, the leadership skills, all of those things. You're a highly attractive prospect to somebody for employment. Contrary to what some people might say about, oh no, if people don't want to employ GAA stars because they're going to be away a lot. I've never found that. I think that if you're a GAA star, people know the skills and the values and the qualities that they have.
We had a Kieran Kilkenny is obviously a very good friend of mine, a teammate. He actually signed, unbelievable Gael goer, always has been. He signed Hawthorn and came back after 5 or 6 weeks, and he said it himself. It's a personal choice. It was at that exact point, winning and being successful over there with all the lifestyle and benefits and everything of being in Australia. It's not going to mean as much to me as playing with his club in Castleknock, or ultimately going on to have the success that he had with Dublin. And I think he's an incredible example. He's an amazing ambassador for Dublin and for GAA. I think the work he does. But ultimately, like Mark came on our show and we had a great chat with him. He's an unbelievable success story over there, and he's a massive loss to Kerry. But I think ultimately it is always going to be a personal choice.
So Jarlath, obviously in the job now over a year, loads of work done, but a couple of years left. And just going forward, we spoke about the past in the GAA, but going forward, what do you think is the GAA's biggest challenge?
It's a very easy question to answer, Richie. Single biggest challenge the GAA has at the moment is the demographics issue in Ireland and the movement east of a large section of the population. That is a serious worry for us, and it has major implications for us in the GAA because I think it's a third of the people of Ireland are living now within maybe 50 miles of the east coast. We're not properly catering for those because of the price of land, and we have super clubs, which are a great thing, but that's causing its own issues as well. The growth of hurling in particular in Dublin has been an incredible achievement of the GAA. But then looking at the other side of it, North Mayo, if you look at Leitrim, look at Longford, look at the GAA in towns, how we're finding it difficult in town centres to keep GAA clubs alive, and yet on the edge of those town centres, GAA clubs are growing and thriving. There's all of these dynamics. And one of the big questions is, what can we do about that? There's a number of things we can do about it. We can start producing what you would call integration and independent teams, toolkits for teams that feel that they have to amalgamate, because having to amalgamate with their biggest enemy in the other parish is a big thing. Second thing is that this phenomenon that it just so happens coincidentally that the top players who transfer into Dublin seem to go into an area where there's one of the big clubs. I think that we should be introducing rules to prevent players who transfer to Dublin from going to a Division 1 club. I think that, Division 1 clubs have enough players in their own area that they should be able to create their own thousands and thousands of members. They shouldn't be having to take players in from other counties. And we have a very, very active demographics committee led by Benny Hurl. And they're going to be presenting to us. And I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have an annex to our official guide to deal with clubs in areas of demographic crisis that is going to allow, let's say, clubs in places where there's difficulty with demographics to play to easily transfer from other counties to for that club to play in another county where there might be 3 or 4 clubs in the similar position to it. To allow, remember the Rule 1.3 states that what it is that defines a club, you have to be able to produce 15 players for the first round of the championship. You wouldn't believe how difficult that is in some clubs in Ireland at the moment, and they want to be involved. Maybe to broaden out what it means to be a club. It might be, let's say, if you put in 3 acts and score, or if you have a ladies' team. So, for example, Mullabrack in Armagh find it difficult without men's teams, but they're a powerhouse, a ladies' GAA. That might be something that can keep you at your club status. And then the other thing would be to allow people to become 1/10 of the population of Ireland are members of the GAA. That's an incredible statistic, 1/10. And it means that we're more than an organisation, we're a movement. That could be even bigger because I see thousands of people supporting Armagh, and it used to be Mayo as well, and they're not involved with their club. Should we introduce a general GAA membership that doesn't have you involved with the club, but has you a member of the GAA that would cater for all of those people who can't get on Furin, which is our membership system, because they're not a member of a club. Therefore, they can't avail of €5 off tickets and stuff like that. I think we could do more maybe to create a general GA member that is not a member of a club, but that supports the county. So one word answer, Richie, to your question is demographics. That has to be the word that is all around this country, where the government is saying, does rural Ireland mean anything anymore to this country? And if it does, well, we have an organisation here that coalesces people and creates society, creates community, that we saw around the time of COVID, whenever we relied on the GAA to do everything for us. Does that mean something to us? Because there is no organisation like the GAA anywhere else in the world that creates that community dynamic. And I think that's worth fighting for. And the GAA is the only organisation that is fighting for it. And that we need to be lobbying government to change legislation to make it easier for people to live in their own parish and to build a house in their own parish and to live where they were born and reared. I think that's something we need to fight for.